3, 2, 1.
Racing World is presented by Race Control Magazine. And hello to you all from the Racing World podcast. I'm Darcy Waldegrave, along with David Turner and Bob McMurray. We are as we're counting down toward the end of what has been a catastrophic 2020, I think it's probably fair to say. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, please share, please subscribe. Same goes with Radio Public, Anchor FM and Spotify, and all things going well and good. We might even stick around for 2021 because it can't be as bad as this year. Although I'm saying that, what's got me about this entire year is by hook or by crook, somehow, be it online, be it virtual, be it whatever, motorsport's managed to actually crawl through this. It's been extraordinary, the lengths that everyone's gone to as far as IndyCar, as far as Formula One, as the Supercar Series, and then all the E-Series as well, and then let's go right across to the all the other series, the ones that I didn't mention, because there are so many categories. Yeah. We've actually stayed going, and that is, considering the size, the scope of the sport, the expense of the sport, the global nature of the sport, I think we can doff our cap to everybody concerned. It's been quite astonishing if you sit back and actually think about it, which sadly I have been because I'm a bit of a tragic.
Well, I think if you looked at it, you know, when we all first were building up to Melbourne, because that was the great kickoff in many ways, and, you know, all of a sudden, there's not going to be an Australian Grand Prix, and then the whole world changed, really. So when you think back to March and that, and then where we are, and we're now talking about championship winners that have run full distances of championships. It's pretty good, isn't it?
Being I've only just thought about this, but being the cynic I can be occasionally.
Which is not a rant.
I'm just going to have a coffee. How long's this going to go for?
No, but isn't it simply because motorsport is a big sport involved in business and money and finance, that side of it has pushed it through? Rather than if you're just if you're not a hugely sponsored sport, you haven't got huge numbers of companies involved or anything, you just fade away because there's no impetus to keep it going. In Formula One and in even with the Toyota Racing Series and everything else, the impetus to keep it going comes from the finance that is necessary from the TVs. That's why the NFL has come through, the American football. That's why baseball did what it did with nobody there. You know, it's the very finance that pushes these things through.
Well, I think it also that we you know, whether we want to acknowledge it necessarily or not, we live in a technology-driven sport as well across all its genre, and that technology played a big part in COVID as well. You look at all the F1 teams and supercar teams particularly, and IndyCar teams that were helping develop protection devices or
way back.
respirators and all of those things, you know.
That's right.
How quickly we forget that because we got involved in the championship, but those things still applied. So, I think motorsport as a global organisation can hold its head pretty high, really.
Yeah.
Well, it even got me watching virtual sport. I mean, I sat there enthusiastic and keen. Well, no, but it was there. It was any port in a storm, as they say. I was like, okay, if this is what we've got, this is what we've got. And I'll sit there and I'll watch it. It made the return of the actual racing on the street so much more exciting, but it was still there.
I was watching it with a fixed smile and grated teeth.
Yeah, thinking, but you were still watching it. You were still watching it.
The Supercars run was the best, I think. That was really good.
There was different standards of it, but at least people came to the party and tried to do things, and you saw individual drivers come out with their own things. Like I followed Joseph Newgarden quite a lot, and some of the stuff that he was putting online was, like, well, cool, I'll wait and see what he does tomorrow. So it was good.
Yeah, there's so much money, you're right, Bob, tied up in the sport. They couldn't just let it die. They had to do something, but it wasn't like throw my hands in the air and go, we can't. Say, okay, here's our problem. Let's get together, let's make a solution. I think all of the teams and all of the categories work that out. I mean, you look at Australia, for example, the trouble those teams guys, and we're not talking about the supercar drivers and those stars.
It's the teams.
We're talking about the teams and the commitment that they made, moving all over Australia, away from family for so long, never knowing what border they were going to be able to cross, when they're going to be changed. But they steadfastly stuck in there, and they stuck with it, and they didn't complain, and you didn't hear whinging and moaning online. They just got on with the task at hand because they wanted to go racing.
Well, you remember when we had Andre Heimgartner on the show. If you didn't, then go back and have a look for it. But, and he was saying about the number of takeaway meals that Kelly Racing had had, because they'd been on the road for so long. So, credit where credit's due. And then there was F1 last weekend.
And then there was F1. And
Actually, we can talk about live motorsport now. Well, fair enough.
Yeah.
What do you call that, Bob? Now the rant starts.
I don't know what you'd call it, really. I mean, I don't know. I've had some discussion with a couple of Formula One friends of mine since the last weekend. First of all, George Russell, what a talent. What a superb talent. Secondly, the track itself, they were saying it was going to be an oval and all the rest of it. It wasn't. It wasn't an oval anywhere near it, but it was a bloody exciting track.
It was an oval that had been bounced along a road.
Well, it was
a bit beaten up and smashed.
Oval, yeah.
I was at Pukekohe at the weekend, and it was as oval as Pukekohe is oval, basically. You know, it was. There were long straights and long bendy bits, but essentially there were corners as well. I thought George Russell did an amazing job, like the whole world does. I think it was humiliating for Valtteri Bottas, a lot of it. I don't care what he says.
Time.
I think it was humiliating. I kept making notes and I gave up again. Look, I always do. Amazing performance, George Russell. An amazingly bad performance by Mercedes. I mean, what the hell? I've got a photograph on my, which my nephew sent me from the UK of the all the boys and the Mercedes team sitting there, and somebody's Facebooked Lewis Hamilton's face at the end of the queue with a grin on his face. They're all waiting for the pit stop, so he got
there's one I've seen as well, and it's got Lewis in a mechanic's helmet for the pit stop, leaning over and a bubble caption off it, "Remember me," as he's attempting to change the tyre.
That mess in that tyre was not quite as bad as once many years ago when, who Ferrari driver was it pulled up and there was only 3 wheels there for him. I think that's happened a couple of times.
Yeah,
but
it has.
It's
And
amazing
both
how
times at
things can
Ferrari.
collapse,
Massa.
even with, it might have been Massa, with such an amazing team. And they're very good.
Yeah.
Mercedes, McLaren, you don't win the amount of championships as you do, sorry. Couldn't help myself. I threw that
wasn't
in
quite
there.
Mercedes.
No, it wasn't. It was Mercedes. I just see if I get a rise out of you. But it just shows pressure applied to teams, what can actually happen.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take much for it to be a complete disaster.
They're beatable.
Yeah.
On any given day, any team is beatable.
Yeah, but they say it was a technical error because the radio was overcome. Now they fixed it. I was reading this morning how they fixed it. So whatever. Yes, humiliating for Valtteri Bottas.
And I see you gave some of us bad luck, though, to George Russell. Must have spent too much time with him before the race.
But there again, why stop the Mercedes drivers anyway? I mean, why stopping them? And this is what Hamilton often says when they want to stop him when there's a safety car towards the end of the race. My tyres are okay. Leave me. I'll stay here in case of mistakes. Well, that's what he was talking about. So once again, Lewis Hamilton kind of is very aware of situational awareness.
Yeah, it's just adding another opportunity for something to go wrong.
In those situations, Hamilton is that much stronger person inside the team as well, so he can kind of semi-dictate those terms. When you're Russell, it's like, oh shit, I'm the new kid here, I've got to
I'm George Russell, I'm not coming in. Come in, George. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, don't ever drive for us again, So.
But the pit stop in any case was bad timing because the virtual safety car came on straight away, and that allowed Perez to get through and win. And didn't Perez do incredibly well? I mean, I've read this things. Ross Brawn said it's a tragedy that Perez is not in Formula One next year. It's a frigging sport. It's not a tragedy. A tragedy's a plane crash. A tragedy's an earthquake. A tragedy's when people are killed. It's a bloody sport. Of course he should be in Formula One next year. Of course. But he's not. That's all there is to it. I mean, it's the business of Formula One. Yet, I mean, he could easily be with Red Bull. Yeah, the way it's going.
That's the hot rumour, isn't it? That Red Bull and see you around Alex Albon.
Well, he did himself a few favours, didn't he, in the last...
Alex Albon's still not performing. In brackets, Perez.
Perez, yes, true that. I can see that.
That's there as well. I mean, it was a fascinating race. Was it a great race? I think it was up there with really, really entertaining and really quite a good race, Formula One race there. I think it was I think it was a very good race.
But not a great race.
No, unfortunately, that one incident with Leclerc, Verstappen, and Perez. Although I don't think Perez was to blame, it took much of the
What was
the
astonishing, wasn't it?
away.
Watching Verstappen slowly but surely through the gravel and just straight into the side.
Gravel there.
Just couldn't. Bang!
No,
it was all unfolding in slow motion. You really
can't
felt his
steer on
pain
marbles, and that's what he was on, marble
can't
gravel.
Go anywhere.
I guess the big thing for George Russell is potentially this week he's got to go back to his other car, and it's kind of like, man, I've had a taste of this, and now I'm back down here.
Yeah,
and that's actually psychologically got to be quite hard.
No, I'd say it'd be good for him psychologically because he knows that if he has the
can
right
play at
equipment,
that
he can
game,
play the
at that
game.
level.
So he knows
Yeah,
that
yeah.
now. So I think that's really big for him.
Oh,
Going,
yeah,
okay, so
yeah.
I haven't got
Yeah.
the equipment underneath me, but when it's given to me, I don't make
I
a
can
mistake.
shine.
And he wasn't exactly careful around there either. He didn't like walk around the place going, can I handle this car? He drove the car as it should be driven. I think that
he
shows.
got into it right from, FP1 as well, and I heard some team radio saying that he wasn't happy with the seat and everything in FP1. Well, even if he wasn't, he still topped the timesheets.
Yeah, with his 2 small boots on and things like that he was wearing. And the time, and I know it was a tyre-related thing and all the rest of it, the time where he actually drove past Valtteri Bottas, overtook him. That has got to have, that was like going in Bottas's head. Jeez. And I know he was on old tyres because they cocked everything up and whatever, but nonetheless, he went past him.
And you've got to applaud George again for doing that. I'm going to go past you and I'm going to have a go, and there you go.
But then you've also got to applaud Mercedes because presumably at that stage they let him race.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't think there was any question. They haven't put anything on the radio.
No, that's always been their way too anyway, really, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Wasn't the deal though right at the start of the race? He was always the get-go because he was first up and off around the first couple of laps, so he was always going to be the lead driver and get to make those calls.
Yeah, basically.
By default.
Yeah,
You're faster.
Yeah.
Do what you want.
Yeah.
I mean, people are talking about Hamilton's position now being under threat. Or, well, no, not his position being under threat.
Which people do you speak of?
His bargaining power in Formula One and in Mercedes being under threat, that's rubbish. That's absolute rubbish. Just because one race, one driver comes in and does the best job you could expect by winning the race, and that wasn't his fault, it doesn't mean to say Lewis Hamilton.
It's a pro-George thing, not an anti-Lewis thing.
But, I mean, you look at what Mercedes have got in Lewis Hamilton, one of the most recognisable sportsmen in the world, a guy that appeals to the young, a completely different parameter than Mercedes was, which was a very Teutonic company. He's a black kid that's come in there from the wrong side of the tracks. I say Stevenage in Hertfordshire is the wrong side of the tracks. It's not, but he didn't come from a privileged background, and he's got all the way through. He is the best piece of advertising around the world Mercedes have got.
And he's not afraid to put himself out there either, so he's going to attract.
And he says what he thinks, and they support that.
It's also saying the fact that there is a generation after Lewis.
Oh, yeah.
And the likes of George Russell. Just as there is an IndyCar with life after Dixon, there will be another generation. And that's the involvement. If you think back before Lewis, we had, the Schumachers, and back before that, the Sennas, and it's just, that's...
Yeah, it's a roll-on generation, isn't
exactly.
It really is.
Still got a Schumacher, haven't we?
Yeah, we've got another one.
What it's done for the constructors, of course, is messed it up again for that all-important third position. Racing Point now take that over 194 points from McLaren on 184, who didn't have the best weekend there, and Renault 172, who apart from Ocon, they Ricciardo didn't have the best weekend, and Ferrari 131 points. They're out of it. And they're out of it.
They were out
in the
March.
First lap, and then Vettel driving around.
March, I could even go earlier, couldn't you? Oh no, things were looking promising before they actually got in the car, weren't they?
Yeah. Well, Leclerc was okay. He was fighting up front. Trouble is, he only lasted 2 corners, and he fought into the side of somebody else. Not his finest day, was it? But yeah, I thought it was quite good. I mean, overall, what did we get? Lance Stroll, Ocon second, right? And Lance Stroll third, Sainz from McLaren's fourth. He saved a little bit, but that first and third for Racing Point really put their constructors up. And don't forget, I say again, this is millions and millions of dollars is bouncing on this third position for the Constructors' Championship. And you talk about young guys coming through. I was at, this is an aside, I was at Pukekohe at the weekend. The young drivers, we haven't got any worries about young drivers coming through. We really haven't. There's some amazing kids coming through. Not only down in the South Island Formula 4, what do they call it, Formula 1600 or whatever, as we talked about last weekend. People like Taylor Bryant, who won the 86 race with Daniel Gaunt. In fact, the championship they won, the Toyota 86 championship. Formula First kids were out there. Man, around Pukekohe, they have no fear. They have no fear. 3 abreast going into turn 1, and they're all slipstreaming each other. I was really, really pleased to see all the young kids down there. It was wonderful.
The capability to understand fear. The cortex hasn't fully developed yet.
No, the onus now is on the sport and its structure to provide a pathway for them. It's not a rant because I sit on the trust for the Elite Academy, but the sport needs to foster this young talent as well. You know, it's one thing for the kids to get there, but we've got to provide the pathway for them. But in saying that, we haven't just run out of people now that Nick or Liam Lawson or Marcus Armstrong or whoever have left the country. There's another wave coming. So
there is. There
look
is.
out Europe and look out, America.
Well, wave is right here in New Zealand because they keep breaking, don't they?
They keep breaking.
For as long as I
there's
can
another
remember,
one.
there's another one on the minute, another one coming. So
thrown up on the beach.
You know?
Amazing.
And talking young talent, obviously Liam landed after we talked to him last week. He landed overseas and stuff. And Marcus actually had a reasonably strong run in F2. We're doing this after day 2 of testing, which only finished a few hours ago. And there's another day to go. But Liam Lawson finished 4th overall on day 2. And Marcus Armstrong was 5th overall on day 2. Liam, of course, with High-Tech Grand Prix, who he's used to driving with. Marcus Armstrong with probably his new team, Dams, which is a very, very famous team in France, and they're both good teams. So hopefully it changes Marcus Armstrong's outlook on things, and it changes the way he manages to operate and gets a bit more consistency in his...
dare I say it, it's probably been a really good thing for Marcus because he's had great success every year. Everything's gone well. Everything's I don't say fall into place. You've got to be a very good driver to get what you got. And this year he's had a really tricky, difficult year, as it were. So it's going to show him how much intestinal fortitude he's got to go, okay, that was one of those years. Put it aside. Where to now? And the strength of his character is going to come through. And I think that's really important in the development of anyone.
You look at his pathway over the last few years, and he's got there, because he's got there on talent as well, and the talent will prevail. And, like we've said on many shows, hats off to them all for doing it because the 3 of us couldn't.
No, but look at Liam Lawson. I mean, Liam's 4th in that list on at the end of the second day. And above him is Daruvala, Schwartzman, Ticktum. Then there's him and Marcus Armstrong. Then Drugovic, Delatraz, Beckman, all these guys are behind him. They're all Formula 2 drivers. They've all been driving Formula 2. He is the top
Most
rookie
of
by
them
far.
Racing Series drivers as well, aren't they? When you run through that list, it's like, there you go.
I can see 8 or 9 looking at it immediately that are ex-TRS drivers. So, we'll see what the final wash-up is on Formula 2 testing. Whatever happens, Liam has driven incredibly well. So
talking Toyota Racing Series, I'll take it slightly off tangent and bring it towards IndyCar. Former TRS driver down here, Ferrucci. So been with Dale Coyne Racing all year. Now looks like he's going to find himself in an Xfinity NASCAR next season and move on from Dale Coyne. So
he's getting out of
22 race
wheels.
deal. He's not saying he's getting out, but he's pretty well close to an Xfinity deal, so who knows?
He's another kid that knows no fear and knows no fear of bashing into people.
And had no fear of going around the high side at places like Indianapolis, so good on him. So other IndyCar news, seeing as I've skewed it that way a little bit.
Well stolen.
Well stolen. This morning, Juan Pablo Montoya announced as the 3rd driver for McLaren for next year's Indy 500. So
it's like a seniors tour.
I'm sorry. Yet another farewell tour. And
I should have a farewell grid.
I spoke to a few people in the States over the weekend in the car count, and it's very easy to say it in December, and I kind of did it almost last year myself. But the car count for Indy at the moment is sitting at 3940 for 33 slots. So you're going to lose some of those, but whatever we know is that we're going to have a full field come.
Nice to see a bump day, a proper bump day, like it used to be.
It will be back.
So there might even be crowds too.
With a bit of luck.
Actually, you can't have bump days anymore like they used to because it's all shortened programs now and all the rest of it. It's not the month of May anymore.
It's looking very healthy, and there's a lot of talk going on with teams and stuff. So, Ganassi have locked in 4, Penske have locked in 4, Andretti locked in 4, 5 or 6. So it's building already. So the season may have ended, but it sure as heck hasn't stopped.
More excitement, obviously, for us too, because there's 2 Kiwis involved.
2 Scots.
And watching his trajectory is going to be very, very interesting. We know what Dixon can do. We don't know what McLaughlin can do, but you'd be a brave man to bet against him. But it takes a while. Coming from those crazy taxis, that the weirdest things in the world to drive, so I've been told. Compared to every other car, it's going to be quite a step for him.
I think,
just
like
to prove.
anything, there'll be times where people shine, and then there's times maybe where they don't. But then ultimately, it'll rise. And I think in the case of McLaughlin, it'll rise to the highest points.
Bit of other Kiwi news as well. I saw Albarn on TV last night and on TV1, and they were sort of detailing his travels over the last few months.
100,000 K?
He's just everywhere. Just amazing, isn't it? And he's off South Africa now. But it was interesting this morning that Callum Hedge is joining his team to drive the Porsche Australia.
Porsche Australia.
Yeah,
Porsche
and
Australia.
that's him and his brother Will, isn't it?
Yeah,
Running
him and
the
his
teams,
brother
yeah.
Will, which is fantastic.
Well, they've very good programs, those guys.
Yeah,
They obviously know what they're doing, and
Yeah.
they've done it very, very well. Very busy.
Yeah.
Wow, amount of
Callum
work.
Hedge was there at the weekend at Pukekohe, walking around with his hands in his pockets, talking to all the drivers. He's definitely itching to drive anything. It doesn't really matter, but obviously he's got his heart set on Porsche now, which is a bit of a shame. The other day yesterday I was talking to Nick Cassidy, because I couldn't believe, talking with Jono Lester and other people that drive in Japan, they can't get into Japan to drive. And then I noticed that I thought Nick Cassidy was doing Formula E testing, which he did. There he was, Formula E testing, did very well in that. And then I'm reading at the weekend he was back in Super Formula, driving Super Formula car
In Japan.
So I thought, okay, fine. I was reading about it. In race 5, he qualified 11th and finished 5th. In race 6, this is at Suzuka, he qualified on pole. And if you want to see a fast lap, just look at his YouTube thing, whatever, about him doing the pole lap at Suzuka. Those things are only just a little bit slower than Formula One, just a little bit.
When you say
But
just a
with
little bit, like tenths or seconds?
No, maybe a second or so.
Okay.
Maybe 2, but with no ground effect. So the driving is just, well, very little ground effect. So the driving is absolutely fantastic. Anyway, he qualified on pole, and his engine blew up on lap 22. So I spoke to him. I said, well, how did you do this? And there's a special dispensation that he's got that if you leave Japan and get back within 7 days, you don't have to do isolation. So he did that.
Okay.
So he's actually just gone,
Right.
done Formula E testing, gone back. Unfortunately, now he's slipped down to 4th in that championship. There's another race weekend, this weekend, I think, coming up. He's got 49 points. He's not going to be able to do the, it looks like Super GT anymore. So he's going to try and finish the Super Formula and see how it goes.
Just because you've reminded me of something, and I had it in my notes, you mentioned Formula E. The interesting thing in the last week that both Audi and BMW pulling out of Formula E, which is the first sign of manufacturers going off to do other things from the almighty electric series. I wonder what the agenda is there. I have no idea, but it's kind of like, well, there's two big power brokers. Audi have been in there, right from the beginning, and then suddenly they're saying, no, we're moving on. So.
Yeah. It seems that the Volkswagen Group is reorganising their racing completely because they pulled out of it completely. Mercedes have committed to Formula E, so there's something there. I think the most damning thing was that BMW said we can't learn any more from the Formula E
And it was a
transmission and the way
big
it's
tie-up
the
they
power
had
is
with
handled.
Andretti Autosport for running the
Yeah,
cars.
but that's damning when a company like BMW says they can't learn any more. So what is the point of having BMW Formula E? I thought it was an experimental formula to push forwards e-racing and e-technology and all that sort of stuff. I think it's actually overtaken already by what the manufacturers are doing. So Formula E is going to have to learn off them. And some other damning comments where the cars all look the same, which they are, obviously, and they're all the same, which they are effectively. So, I think Formula E has got to re-examine its reason for being, frankly, and just see how they're
My
doing.
immediate thought was, even though they're vastly different, it was like, oh, hello, here we go, A1GP all over again, big plateau, and then whoosh. So I hope not,
Yeah,
because it
I
deserves
certainly
to
hope
be
it's
there.
not like A1GP.
But, we'll see. But
Yeah.
it was just something that I noticed, so
Yeah.
be interesting to see how
But
it goes.
going back to what we were talking about in the beginning, if you actually look back over the season, and we were thinking about best races, and at some point or another we need to announce the choice of driver. We'll try and do that.
Yeah, here's
final-
the trophy, Mike.
Yes, maybe a final show next week. But I think we've also got to. There's so much I've forgotten from the season because so many high bits have come. I mean, the races from Formula One point of view in Turkey and Mugello. The whole concept of Australia at the beginning of the year when everybody was there and sorry we're going home now,
Just
and
like that.
that kicked in, and then the whole IndyCar starting up again and all sorts of stuff. hopefully the Toyota Racing Series finished on a high, and it looks like, from what the government have said, that they're probably going to allow some people in for the Toyota Racing Series 21. So hopefully the Toyota Racing Series and the New Zealand Summer Series effectively bookends COVID in that year. So got away with it in the first place and restart the whole season in the second place.
Well, let's hope it works as far as the Trans-Tasman bubble, because great to see Shane Van Gisbergen in an open wheeler again, toying around with the TRS car. And if he wants to race in the 50th race for Ken Smith.
Yeah,
it'd be lovely to see him and some other big names as well.
The problem is there's this big Red Bull announcement for the whole year, which is just a couple of days after the Grand Prix. So, if they don't allow the bubble or don't allow dispensation or whatever for him, he's buggered because he's contracted to Red Bull. Speaking with him, he really, really wants to do it. I mean, it's not a question of him, dicking about and saying... It's
not as simple to jump on a plane like it used to be. That's all.
No. Well, fingers crossed, vaccine out. You never know. Stranger things have happened, like the entirety of 2020, have we?
Yeah. Andre Heimgartner was there at the weekend as well.
Nice.
I spoke with him and said, great for coming on our podcast. He said, any time. He said, sometimes you get in a bit of trouble from what I say now and again with supercars. I said, mate, don't worry. We've got lots of people in trouble. Hey, hello, Adrian Burgess. We've got lots of people in trouble.
We didn't get him in trouble, did we?
No.
Come on. What are we looking forward to this weekend?
I'm looking forward to the final Grand Prix, and I'm looking forward to finding out what the wash-up of Formula 2 is, because Liam Lawson's got, as he told us, he's got to get back on a plane and get back to New Zealand. He'll be back on the 27th of December, probably. But certainly this weekend I'm looking forward to that. I don't know that there's much else motorsport on at the moment. I think
kind of done almost our year, but then again it is nearly
Well,
Christmas time.
We've wrung the neck of it, and we're still talking racing in early December.
Formula One testing, of course, after Abu Dhabi, when the young drivers can test.
Including
that young
Alonso.
driver, Fernando Alonso, can test.
What another farewell tour.
Especially when the FIA have just said, science, no, you can't. No, not allowed to test. Yep, no. Oh, Alonso is. No, this is a young driver's test. I mean, what a lot of bollocks, really. If it's a young driver test, it's a young driver test. If it isn't, let them test. For crying out loud.
It's a test. Just leave it at that.
We're done.
And anyway, we will leave it at that. That's the Racing World podcast. Remember, if you are watching on YouTube, please share, please subscribe, please like. Even feel free to comment. Same with Spotify, with Radio Public and Anchor FM. Thanks very much for your continued support. And we'll look to wrap things up next week as Racing World bids you farewell for yet another edition. Thanks, guys.
Stay safe out there.
Perspective Group is a leading media production company based in Auckland, New Zealand. Established in 2009 by former TVNZ producer David Turner, Perspective Group offers you a vast arrangement of media options to fit any size or budget. It covers truly global services supported by some of New Zealand's leading media talents. For more information, contact Perspective Group Limited at perspectivegroupltd@gmail.com and check out the website perspectivegroupltd.com, where you'll find even more information on creating your media solutions.
You have a dream. You have all the drive in the world. You have talent to burn. Now all you need is a chance. Toyota are committed to developing and nurturing New Zealand's next generation of world-class racing drivers, because if you can dream it, we can do it.
Race Control Magazine is your IndyCar fan mag and so much more. Publishing monthly online on issuu.com, you will find Race Control Magazine there for you to download and enjoy everything IndyCar and so much more. Behind the scenes features, race reports and the entire Road to Indy series are just part of what you will find, along with stunning images captured from the series' leading photographers. Grab your copy today at issw.com to complete your motorsport read. Racing World is presented by Race Control Magazine.